All right. All right. All right. All right. Just sit up here. First and foremost, as always, as I've learnt now, before I begin, I have to do a sound check, make sure everything is coming through loud and clear. As soon as I get let me just see what mi gente are saying, what the people are saying. If I can get a clear from you guys till you do that, I will just bring up here. There it is. All right. Sound is coming through. Let me just check with Facebook as well. All right, and I'll also, what I'll do is take out some of the comments separately. I know that works pretty well as well. Just put that over here, drag this back. So I take it, that's better. I take it the volume is loud and clear. Let me just, can't see from the Facebook. Sound is perfect. Abdul Basit, shukran. Claire, shukran. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafa. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا. People, bienvenidos a todos. Bakhair ragle, khushamadid, sasriyakal, kemcho, and as always, swagatam, swagatam. All right. So, how are you all keeping? Allahu Akbar. Right. Wow. It's I don't know why it seems like an eternity for me. Let me just bring up my qahwa. Just put it right here and kya baat hai yaar, kya baat hai. Honestly, such is life, huh? You know, as the poet says, he says, Guzar to jayegi tere baghair bhi lekin bahut udas, bahut bekarar guzregi. Allah. He says, it's not that I'm dedicating it to the coffee, but to all of you lovely folks as well. He says that even without you, it would still get by, as in life. But bahut udas, but you know, with a sad temperament, bahut bekarar guzregi, with great restlessness. Allah. People, that is what we are talking about. Okay, so I was going to today's dars. I'll be taking a look at some verses of the Quran centered on dua. I think that's incredibly important. Why? Because one, there's the aspect of the power of dua we can take a look at, but also, more importantly, a misunderstood methodology when it comes to dua. Why people tend to misunderstand. And following from that, a subtopic, what is the distinction between religion and superstition? Because to some people, they may be the same. Some people may think it's superstition and it's religion. Some people may think it's religion and it's superstition. So we'll take a little look at that as well. Those of you just tuning in, you know the drill. You know it by now. So the drill is to click like, click share, spread the love, people. Do the love, man. Do the love. Spread the love. Don't do the hate. Okay, so, and we've got la Imam Qazi. All right, Jat Hedri. See, that's the Mullah Jat in. All right, Qazi, so good to hear from you. All right, so somebody says, all right, so how has Mufti frozen? I'm not sure. Have I frozen? Is this frozen? I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. So let me just take a look at some of the mixed comments. Good vibes. Nope. Shukran, shukran. So that's what we want to take a look at. I will also show you that those of you who are not aware, and we'll follow that up with, I will take a look at your questions, obviously. You guys are, mi corazón. That's what it is. So, but, and those, and then I'll share the link and we'll have some meet and greet as well. Obviously, I'll give preference to my Patreons and to the super chats and all your love. But we've got a bit of this to take a look at. I wanted to show you first of all. All right, those of you who ain't familiar, yesterday we did the first book lounge meetup, and the discussion was taking a look at the book Money. And I thoroughly enjoyed, I really did enjoy the convo. I think it's a fantastic way to get people talking about ideas. And it's also a good way to kind of kickstart people into reading. Because I feel that we've become a people who have, and I don't mean, and I mean specifically, خصوصا المسلمين, or al-mu'minin, shall I say, the believers, but bil-umum, I mean, an-nas, people generally, that we in this day and age have moved away from books, and people may still read. I think it's an illusion to think people don't read, but they read things like social media comments, captions. They read. They may be doing an equal amount. Some people may be doing more reading, but it's not. It's kind of immediate, non-rewarding reading. So they read a lot of comments, statuses, Twitter feed. Maybe I can't stand Twitter, so I'm not on Twitter. I am, but not much. So. But let's say people are reading Instagram comments, Instagram captions, Facebook, YouTube, surfing the net, whatever. But they are not reading books constructively, because you could do all of that reading and you could do one fraction of that. So let's say you do 1/10 of that reading, but you actually take something away with you, not just, hey, my lunch was pretty cold today, and hey, I'm stuck in traffic, and hey, check out this new TikTok trend. TikTok. Toba. Honestly, I think if ever we have to do the Toba again, Toba. If ever there was something that is there to kind of, what was interesting is yesterday, part of this, if you haven't watched this book club thing, by the way, it is on YouTube. I think it's just shy of I think, is it 1.5 to 2 hours in between that. The discussion, do check it out. It's very fascinating, because at the end we do discuss the future of humans amongst AI, artificial intelligence, and do we have a future? And I think what Yuval Harari does is he really poses some uncomfortable, unnerving, but maybe some very real questions, that do we actually have a future with artificial intelligence? Now, of course, we have a future. I'm not going down, Nick Bostrom, his kind of thing about they're going to kill off all of humanity like the Terminator. But I think I can see how things will become challenging, like there will be an human underclass. And so right now you have a working class, and you have the middle classes, and you have the upper echelons of society. But what this may result in is an underclass, a human underclass, where, and this was the discussion towards the end of yesterday's meetup, that will there still be a significant role, a pivotal role for human beings? Now, of course, there will be, because human beings will ultimately be designing new algorithms and doing things. But the question is that the individual? And I really love the way he brings our attention to individual, indivisible. That the individual is somebody so unique that he can no longer be divided into the other. There's this uniqueness about this individual. And he highlights that in the future, in this 21st century, it seems we no longer will be the individual. So humans will always have a pivotal role, but perhaps not most humans, or perhaps not many. If not most, not many. Some people naturally will, the best of the best, the creme de la creme, the kind of Elon Musks and the astrophysicists and maybe not even astrophysicists, because artificial intelligence could kind of figure out a lot of patterns in mathematics, but the kind of geniuses and people that are really good at their craft, they will always have some role, but that leaves many other people who, well, I guess they'll always have TikTok. Ya salam. Ya salam. So, right, that's Fahad, I want Mufti back in front of his books. There's many things I'm sure you want in life. You see, this, as I've said before, this is an exciting new chapter. Let it unfold. Live with it. Embrace it. Be the change. Allah. Right, so what's going on? Right, I'm just taking a look at some of the comments. I've got them on there as well. So, okay, that was about the book club. It's called the Book Lounge. I am thinking of really locking it off to select people, and then I'm still in two thoughts how it's going to move forward, because I want people who are, I want beautiful minds to contribute. Not just anyone, and not just and I like the dynamics, and I'm thinking if there's too many people, I don't know how we'll handle it. And so we're still working on that. Let us see. I may just kind of just bring in select people, and other people may go, and I may kind of put it on as a Patreon tier. I don't know. I'm thinking, but I like it as it is. I do like it. All right. So what is going on? All right, so we've got here, Zayan is saying, can we have a mut'a lounge? Here, nate. You see, Zayan, in one sense, isn't that also by name, I'm sure in one stretch, to mean fault? Well, there you go. They've named you. Make you Zia Carbon. That's Zia, but I suppose Zia Carbon. What is it? Make you Zia Carbon. Fikre Game Dosh Karu. No, what is it? What's the famous Yard the Shikwa? Right. So, okay, let's move on to the dars, so we can take a look at some of the questions later on. So, all right, we've had a look at that. So this was just to show you how the Quran highlights the power of dua, how dua is often misunderstood, difference between religion and superstition. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at. Okay, so first and foremost, I think this is one of the most incredible verses of the Quran. Seriously, I really, if you haven't paid attention to this verse before, then do so, in your own time if you feel. It is from Surah Baqarah, the second surah, the largest surah of the Quran, and verse 182. You can see it here. I'll just bring it up. Right, so leading up, right, there it is. Right, so this is going to, yep. So here it is on the general standard mushafs. It'll be right the last verse before it kind of changes subject almost. Verse 186. Sorry, did I say 182? 186. Right. So what's interesting is, first of all, just a brief, just a few, I don't know, just words on the context. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala initially is addressing Ramadan, fasting, the struggle, people before you, all of these kind of things. And you can imagine that once again, it brings forward a struggle, it brings forward people. And the nature of struggles, this is something incredibly important. The nature of a struggle is it triggers memories of other struggles. Have you ever thought it's true, isn't it? That when a person, something happens, they then think about other problems and tragedies that have happened and befell them also. So, and you just think personally, and that's just the nature of things. And there's a good example in Surah Yusuf as well, when Binyamin is also kept by the pharaohs, and when they come back and tell Yaqub alayhi salam, so one of the things he says is he starts crying about Yusuf alayhi salam again, even though that's something that's happened decades before. So it's just the nature of tragedy. It doesn't beget tragedy, but it brings a series of, it evokes memories of other personal tragedies and struggles. So same thing with struggles. So there's this Ramadan is going on, there's other struggles people are facing, and so naturally people will think, and here, this is one of the most hope-inspiring verses of the Quran. That وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. That you've got here, note that this begins with وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي. That when my servants, or when my people, Allah is saying, you see, sometimes I feel you can translate these words in a way that they make more sense to you. So if to some people the word, you see, like slaves doesn't make much sense in the contemporary world, I'm sure in the age when the Quran was being revealed, it made sense. Translating it as servants makes sense, but then you see, to some people, you see, to me, servants doesn't make as much. It doesn't quite hit that note, because to serve God. See, the people of God, his people, his creatures, his. So in that sense, that إِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي, when my people ask about me, Allah is saying that, tell them, where am I? Because people say, where is God in all of this? COVID happened, this person, where is God? Inni qarib. I'm close. I am close, Allah says. Inni qarib. Ujibu da'wata da'i idha da'an. I respond to the call. The da'wah, and it can mean prayer. The dua, it can mean call. And same thing, really. When you pray to God, you call upon Him. And I say Him here, not because God is a He. God is not a He. You see, in the Arabic language, huwa, and here, but huwa because it's a masculine word, huwa equally refers to it, it refers to he, it refers to, and in this case, God, what we call lafdul jalala in Arabic, the kind of the magnificent word, which is Allah, referring to Allah. It's not assigning a gender. Do not be mistaken about that. Okay, sometimes, but we use these words just, you see, in Arabic, it's interesting. Would have they understood it like that? They probably may not have, because to them, huwa was used for other than, other than gender. But in English, he is really only used for the masculine gender. So it's, for the male gender. So it's difficult when we translate that. You see, like, whereas in Urdu, let's say, wo doesn't necessitate a gender, even though there is gendered discourse in the Urdu language. But you see, when we say wo about God, that huwa, it doesn't carry a male kind of subtext by necessity, because wo could equally be for any gender and for inanimate and for animate and for, it's just wo. So in Arabic, huwa as well, but I think that's important because somebody made a point about saying he and him for God, but we do in English because that's just how it is. That's the kind of pronoun, but we don't mean by that. It is very important to know this. And there is a joke about that some, in some of these philosophical religious texts, the philosophy of religion texts, they say that Alan Watts actually recounts it as well. He's an amazing legend of the last century, honestly. But so in it, the joke, they ask the astronaut who goes out to space, and they ask him that, when you were there, did you see God? And he says, yeah. And they say, and he says, she's black. And that's like, what? And you see, the whole purpose of this joke was to, I suppose it's more so, it makes more sense for, I suppose, the American audience, especially a few decades back, with racism still at its peak, challenging all forms of stereotypes. Because even when you say he, we're not referring to a male he, you see. So she, although grammatically with the Arabic language wouldn't make sense, but really the pronouns don't refer to God. They're not in any gender. You wouldn't. But the point of the joke was to challenge the stereotype, because people would straight away feel very uncomfortable saying she. And I understand that from a linguistic perspective, but that's the whole purpose of the joke, that you have to look into your own biases. Yeah. So okay, moving back to right. Some people are saying they want to. I'm listening to. Right. Okay. So you've got this. Coming back to this verse 186, Surah Baqarah, that Allah says, "Wal yu'minu bi," let them have faith in me, la'allahum yarshutun. Now, what's incredibly important, the following verse as well, Surah Ghafir, verse 60, that Allah says, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ وَدْعُونِي, call unto me, أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Now this is a conditioned sentence. Allah saying, you do this, I will do this. It's as simple as that. you know, you do this, I do that. Simple as that. That's all. It's a what they call in Arabic jumla shartiya. Okay, so you've got two verses here. Now, what's very important about these, just briefly, we sidetracked. They got a bit distracted. Allah is saying, I am close. Let them call on to me. I will respond. Let them have faith in the hope that they are guided. Now, this is incredibly important. The second verse just reinforces that first statement. Why? Because, and this is where I want to say, and we'll take a look at a few other, in fact, let's take a look at the next two verses, then we'll come back to why I feel this is incredibly important and misunderstood as well. So we've taken a look at this from Surah Ghafir. Right here, Surah Yunus, you've got verse 12. وَإِذَا مَسَّ الْإِنسَانِ ضُرٌّ. Okay, so whenever some harm befalls an insan, دَعَانَا لِجَنْبِهِ, he cries out or she cries out in whatever state they are. All right. And it says, أو قاعدا, or maybe sitting, أو قائما, or they may be standing. فَلَمَّا كَشَفْنَا عَنْهُ ضُرَّهُمْ مَرَّ كَأَنْ لَمْ يَدْعُنَا إِلَى ضُرٍّ مَسَّا كَذَلِكَ زُيِّنَ لِلْمُسْرِفِينَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Now, it's incredibly important here that Allah mentions one of the core archetypal situations for insan is whenever they are in distress, the soul cries out and connects with God. That is archetypal. That is so primordial. It's something unavoidable. You know, as they say, the famous saying, there are no atheists in foxholes. The famous saying from World War I and the World Wars, because at that stage, the soul unquestionably, unrestrictedly, unreservedly, it cries out to God. It connects. You see, you can't, like, imagine a person is about to commit suicide. Yeah. Now he's standing or she's standing about to throw themselves into a lake or something. Now, you see, this is them choosing to do it. This is them. Let's say they 100% want to do this. So they jump in. As the wanting self jumps in, they also fight the drowning. You see? So the question, okay, but wait a minute. But you want this. You do want this. But there's always, but you are resisting this, which is a natural, because it's so primordial. There is more than one self. You see, the self, and this is something we can maybe speak about briefly after we finish this. What is the self? But there are different selves that you have within you. And by self, the ego. I don't mean the ego, the greedy ego, but ego, the you. So there's a you wanting to kill you. There's a you fighting to survive. So which one are you? If you could tell me the answer to that, I'll say you've definitely reached a milestone in this life of wisdom. So here, it is primordial that self cries out to God. You can't, and then Allah says that, but when that harm is removed, now this isn't everyone, but many people will pass as though it never happened. But it's interesting when Allah then says, look at the final verse, this is how it has been decorated falsely, right? This is how the misdeeds, in the translation it says misdeeds of the transgressors have been made appealing or have been decorated for them. But it doesn't say kafirin. It doesn't even say, it's not to do with iman here. Allah's not speaking about whether you've got faith or not. Musrifin, those who are, see, they've translated as transgressors, but musrif is those who are extravagant. You see, and we'll tie that into the talk about the self, the ego. So, okay, so this is important. And the final verse, which ties in, which is from Surah Zumar, verse 49, that, and this ties in exactly to that. فَإِذَا مَسَّ الْإِنسَانِ ضُرٌّ دَعَانَا ثُمَّ إِذَا خَوَّلْنَاهُ نِعْمَةً مِنَّا. You see, when the insan is touched with hardship, but then it is replaced after they cried out, they called upon God, God changed it. قَالَ إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ. Allah. He says, but now this can be translated in many ways, and I'll check out. They've translated it here as, I've been granted all this only because of my knowledge. Okay, yeah, that's exactly one way, and you can expand on that. بل هي فتنة ولكن أكثرهم لا يعلمون. But most of them just do not know. You see, when they say, when it is removed, they say that إنما أوتيته على علم. Now, one way of understanding this is على علم, that because I deserved it. I got all this goodness because God knew I deserved it. The other way is, and this is the which I would find stands out to me and to many of the Mufassirin as well, Ibn Ashur and many others, that I have been given this, that they themselves, it's that ego and the self. And I don't mean, you see, ego, when we're using ego, what I mean by is the identity of the self. That's what I mean. I don't mean the greed, although that's a part of it, but the self, the identity. They say, إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ. You see, because it's all about, if you can sum this up in one word, it is gratitude. See, Allah's not asking for anything. There's nothing to give to God, but it's just appreciation. It's, to kind of throw it in God, metaphorically, so to speak, like as you throw something in someone's face, to say, well, this only happened because I knew how to handle it, or I knew how to do this, or it's because of my own, this is that kind of kufr, not kufr in faith and kufr, but the true sense of kufr. This is what it is. So these verses, why did I feel this is incredibly important? Verse number 1 that we took a look at, 186 from Surah Baqarah, that إِذَا سَأْلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي إِنِّي قَرِيب. Allah says, it does not matter what your hardship is. Just call onto me. Abbe karlo yaar. Just call. Just pray. This is the point. And that was the second verse, same thing. Ud'uni astajib lakum. You just call me, I've got this. Allah is saying, I've got this. Then showing some primordial examples that, whenever you'll have hardship, you will call anyway. Then it's inevitable, because then your prefrontal cortex doesn't need to. The kind of more reptilian brain, the inner core identity of that self will cry out anyway to God. So, and Allah will be there for you, because he says, whenever you call, I'm there. But then let's hope it's not followed by ingratitude, by throwing it back. See, that's the important lesson. Now, what is the other most important thing here when it comes to dua? That is the misunderstood methodologies. Many people feel that if I make a dua, it's too easy. It's too easy. Like, Ya Allah, give me this. Is that it? Is that it? So they feel, in this world, when we want something, we have to struggle. So when I do a dua, it's too easy. There must be a struggle. Inna ma'al usri yusra. That with difficulty comes ease. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer God something. So you have this concept in Arabic of nadhar, not nadhar, which means sight, or nadhar with a dhal. Nadar is where you offer a conditional, you say, like in Urdu, they say mannat, which is also an Arabic word, manna, minna, but here what it means the same thing, an offering, a devotional offering with conditions. Allah. When insan does come back, he comes back to his rightful trading, negotiating self. He says, God, you know what? I'll cut you a deal. Look at the arrogance of the ego at that stage. The self says, Ya Allah, I'll keep 3 fasts. I tell you what, I'll go on Hajj. I tell you what, I'll build a well. The laughter it brings. Because can you imagine the arrogance in saying that to God? But you see, but in some ways we're not blaming these people, because these people have a misunderstood methodology. You see, they are trying to be genuine, because in this world, there's no such thing as free lunches. You see, it's true. So they are just trying to be as real can be. That, I can't, in this world, I would have to go, if I want food, I'll have to work. I'll have to put in a day's work. I'll have to do this. What do I give to God? So they know God doesn't want wealth. He doesn't want that. So they think he must want ibadah. So I know I'll pray 10 nafal. I'll pray 100 nafal. And then it branches out from there. It branches out from there, and it goes to what? It branches out and it goes to other practices. I'll walk barefooted for, I don't know, a few miles. You see, many parts of the world are riddled with these kind of belief practices. People roll around. I'll roll around in the dirt. I won't speak. I'll take an oath to do this. I'll take these things. This is not how, there's an amazing hadith where the Prophet was told about somebody doing this nadar. And he said, and this is in Sahih Muslim, he said, إِنَّمَا يُسْتَخْرَجُ بِهِ مِنَ الْبَخِيلِ. He said, only a miserly person would think like that. You see, you are trying to bribe God. Ya salam. So this is the thing, and I get it, that these people, you see, they're coming from a misunderstood methodology because they want to work for it. They want to earn it. When you take some medication, imagine you were ill and they said, I said to you, oh, here, here's some medicine, take a sip of this and hopefully you'll get better. So you take a few sips and you don't feel anything. You will think nothing's working. But imagine all of a sudden you started getting some aches and pains and your stomach ache. And now, even though you'll endure the pain, because you'll think, you know what, this is working. It's cleansing. You see, because that is the sunan of this dunya, that whoever wants something, they have to earn it. And laysa lil insani illa ma sa'a. So what's the difference here? The difference is, when it comes to Allah, laysa kamithlihi shay. There is nothing like unto God. So when you are dealing with him, you don't have to refer to these paradigms. Nothing like these similitudes, these patterns, the patternicity of these methods, they work in this world. They are of this world. But God isn't of this world. So you don't have to worry about trading with him. You don't have to try to bribe him. And you don't need to think this is too easy. Allah says, Ud'uni astajib lakum. You just do it. I've got it. Now, you you are told, now there are several ahadith and things that teach you, when you do make it, you have the certainty. See, if you do a half-hearted dua, Allah, go on then. अबे ये दुआ मांग रहा है या क्या कर रहा है? It's like, go on then. It's not like that. It's not about, you see, it's not even about raising your hands. It's about that you have that conviction and things unfold. And what I say to people is, see the dua in your mind, visualize it having happened. And if you can do that in sujood, in a salah, that's excellent. Otherwise, do it like that. Visualize the result. It's happened. You've seen it in your mind's eye. And what this is, and so just to have that iman, and I thought that this is incredibly important because there's so many people I speak to sometimes, and they want to make dua and they want to do these things, but they don't understand, and they're doing it genuinely, but they undergo so much hardship. And the amazing hadith is that Allah says, I will treat my servant as he expects me, or I will treat my person as he expects me to treat them. So if the person thinks that ana inda abdi ka dhannihi bi, that if the person thinks I'm only going to get this through hardship, then so be it. Hardships it is. Somebody else thinks, you know what, I'm going to get, the world is amazing. It's full of possibilities, full of opportunities. Allah is glorious and gracious. And this is how you get happy-go-lucky people, because they believe it. This is how they think. And this is how Allah treats them. So I thought it's incredibly important to share those words. Cool. I'll wrap that over there. I'll take a look. I know there was some super chats. Those of you sending some super chats, much love to you. All right. Muhammad Hassan, wow, you're doing it. You're doing it. All right. As always, Azarati is always much love for the super chat. Shukran. Duku saying God is a woman. No, God is not a woman. God is not a man. He's not a woman. These things are forms. God is above form. He is transcendent from any and of any form. Shukran. All right, Lonzetta, you're doing it. Right, so what's going on? All right. C2C contracting. You're doing it. Much love for the super chat, dearly appreciated. Right, yep. What you can do is feel free to send through any questions that you've got. You can also click like, click share, yep, and you can send away. And shukran, much love once again for the super chat. You can let me take a look. I'll select the questions. Obviously, I'll have to give the super chats priority, man. So those of you just tuning in, you can click like and share. Let's see what the I know it's probably a bit late here, but that's, you see, I always operate at an international time. Yes, Rumi did say that. Walk and the way will appear. Absolutely. Maxim, Mufti, is that story sahih? Musa asked God what pleases him, nothing else but making people happy. I'm not sure if the story per se, but the meaning is correct. That nothing pleases God more than you contributing something to humanity, you pleasing people. And I don't mean by pleasing people as in sucking up to people and doing nonsense like that, but you bringing a genuine smile to someone's face. That is, these things, this, because it is by serving humanity that you serve God ultimately, because Allah doesn't need your worship. All right, so let's take a look at some of the questions. And then what I'll do is let me just check this as well. All right. Yep. We've got plenty of time yet. So then I'll share out the feed, the link to kind of connect. All right. Actually, I'll speak a bit about the self and the ego as well in just a moment, but I'll see are there any questions coming in. Sahal blessed. Can I pray in my heart without open my mouth? Unless you're afraid of flies going in. You know, the thing about, you see, the thing about recitation is, you see, at times there's no harm in saying things in your mind. In fact, at times that may be incredible and awesome and very beneficial. But you see, within Salah, the recitation, Salah is about an immersive practice. So when a person speaks, they are using it's a multi-sensory approach that you are reciting, using the mouth, using words, sound. You are hearing your own words at times. You see, so it's more of an immersive kind of practice. It's not otherwise there's nothing wrong in a person. There's nothing wrong with a person trying to, whoa, who's spamming the, right? So there's nothing wrong about, sorry, I'm just, okay, there you go. Had to just put someone in timeout for spamming. Right, so yeah, there's nothing wrong with that per se, but that's within Salah, there are certain ways to do something. And ritual in and of itself is very powerful. We'll do a different session on that. All right, what is... Okay, so let's take a quick look. I want to share some words on the self. Okay, and then I'll share the link. All right, so the self. This is incredibly important. Think about this, people. When we say ego, some people understand ego to mean as in the greediness of a person. Now that's fine. That's maybe one interpretation of ego, but ego actually means the self. So when you think about the self, what do you think of? The self at a psychological level. So you as a person, you wake up in the morning, you don't need to remember who you are. And by who you are, I mean, for example, not just obviously your name, but your identity. Whether you are a parent, a child, a sibling, a spouse, whether you are a teacher, a lawyer, an accountant, a stockbroker, whether you are married, divorced, whether you are roughly of a certain age. Now, I get that people sometimes forget precisely their age, but they know roughly. Like somebody may say, oh, am I 42? Am I 41? I forgot. Am I 43? I forgot. But they wouldn't think that, oh, I'm 19. They wouldn't think like that. So having an idea of the self, this identity. So my ethnicity, for example, I would know that this is my ethnicity. I would know that I'm a person that can speak certain languages. I would know that I'm a person that has certain interests. How do you know all of this? Think about it for a moment. How do you know that? How do you know all of these things I've just mentioned about the self? You see, it's because it's not, there isn't a place in the brain that is allocated to the self. So there is no self localization within the brain. So how do you carry this identity? How does the identity persist? Because the identity, the ego, this is what I mean by the ego, the nafs. This is an illusion. And it's fascinating that, you see, even at a psychological level, we recognize that this is an illusion. I mean, there are certain concrete markers to it. Clearly, like, so if you are male, you have certain male biological markers. I know this, there's going to perhaps some gender fluid people may choose to disagree, but they can't disagree at a chromosomal level and at certain fundamental biological marker levels. You can't disagree. But so you could say, well, with age, you carry certain kind of things, and you have let's say you're reminded by looking through perception, by looking at your own kind of skin tone and your color and things like this. But that's not really the case, because when you wake up in the morning, you don't remember all of a sudden who you are. You don't kind of go, oh yeah, I'm so and so. No, you know who you are. You see, now that's fascinating. That is i'lamu, know. And that, by the way, for a different talk, is the first commandment about God, that know God, know he is God. Not that remember or kind of come to I suppose there's nothing wrong with coming to a realization, but that's not what the first commandment for belief was. It was i'lamu annahu la ilaha illallah. But coming back to this, you know the self. You see, you just know it. You don't have to ponder, you don't have to reflect, you don't have to recollect, you don't have to remind. Generally, this is for most people, you don't, unless there's some kind of breakdown going on, a degenerative kind of issues, but you would know these things. So the question is, how? You see, because that is the question, because on one hand, we know the self, but on the other hand, it's the self that we take a lifetime to know. Hence, know thyself is one of the greatest maxims. And in Arabic, whoever knows his self or herself truly knows God. Man arafa nafsa arafa rabba. So in psychology, they call it the kind of bundle theory or the bundle loop theory. They admit that the self is an illusion. It doesn't actually exist. That what we have, they feel, this is the best we've got so far in psychology. And that is that there is a perpetual, constant, instant loop that that has a feedback non-stop, which is memory, long-term memory, short-term memory, sensation, perception. All of these things are in a constant biofeedback loop. A bundle of these things put together, your memories, your experiences, part of the your kind of preferences. So even your fear centers, the fear center, the amygdala, you'll have different, the limbic system, the thalamic kind of centers, you'll have the prefrontal cortex, you'll linking in certain memories tied in with other features, all kind of in a loop, non-stop, this bundled together, not physically bundled together. I mean, they're in the brain, but there is this, and they are working in a perpetual loop to feed back so much information, which results in an emergent property that doesn't actually exist, but an imaginary kind of property which is called the self, which is you, your identity. That is amazing when you think about it. Because when you realize that, wow, that the self is actually but just an illusion, albeit a very persistent one, and a hell of a one, but it is ultimately an illusion. And this is where I had shared some words as well, that the realization of non-duality is something which it's a sense of breaking away from that illusion. That is something that only, I guess, the minority of people will, unfortunately achieve in this world. And I don't know, I mean, maybe people who take, first of all, they have to have an interest in it. And then to experience that non-duality. Otherwise, this is just something of the other world. It is of the akhirah yet to come, when there is no identity. But there is still a kind of you, but it's not the you of this identity. And this is what was meant by several ulama as well, like Ibn Rushd, the great Maliki legend, and his contemporary, the Muhyiddin ibn Arabi, and other people, about the self, the fact that they said about consciousness. Because consciousness, you obviously have consciousness, and that is you, but then there is the self you, which is the identity you over it. And this is why many people try to quieten their mind by quietening the thoughts, because the thoughts are the ego you, the identity you. They are not the consciousness of you. But yeah, I find this incredibly fascinating, this sense of non-duality and the search for a unitive objective or a goal or a trajectory in life. I don't know, these are, but I think it's also quite daunting, because I think for human not survival, yeah, actually maybe survival in a more brutal, gruesome sense, in a more gritty, replace that with gritty sense. There must be the identity you, because otherwise because unfortunately people need to thrive in this world, and they need to kind of there must be competition, and there must be all of this, and it must feed back into the ego, the identity ego, which must then feed back into wanting more and there's this perpetual loop. And I suppose if there was a disintegration of the identity ego, it would result in, maybe, I don't know, would it possibly diminish the drive to be so, for that grit? It may. So this is, I want to share some thoughts. I don't know whether they make much sense. In the words of Ghalib, bak raha hoon junoo mein kya kya kuch na samjhe khuda kare koi. Allah says, what is it that I'm just, muttering away nonsense in this insanity of mine, that God willing, nobody understands anything. Right, there was some super chats. Let me just get back to them. Right. Waika, shukran, you're doing it. Much love for the super chat. What's your take on recitations like Surah Fatiha 7 times, Durood 2 times before making dua? Really enlightening topic today, Mufti. Shukran, Waika, muchas gracias. Right, so de corazón, right? So, yeah, these things are, reciting Fatiha or durood, or like saying salatu wassalam ala nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. These things are amazing, beautiful things. But I would say if you're going to do them, don't do them out of an obligation, or don't do them out of a routine. If you're going to do them out of love. Otherwise, you're not obliged to do it. Don't feel that, I've got to burdened by stuff. You see, don't make unnecessary obstacles. Do these things if you want to do them. If you say, I want to do some glorification, I want to send salatu wassalam ala nabi, I want to do these things, do them out of a sense of love. Don't ever do them out of don't because if you have to do something out of I have to do it, I feel that it's a disservice to even do it. That's my thoughts. Right, so there was another super chat. Let me just bring it up. Samia Stunner, you're doing it. Much love, dearly appreciated. Shukran. Right, so okay. Shah Fuhaid says, in Vedanta, mind is compared to the lake, and thoughts are the ripples. And when the lake is turbulent, its bottom is not visible. Wow, that is incredibly profound. That definitely sounds like prophetic wisdom, which, even Allah says in the Quran that prophets came in all places, minhum man lam naqsusum, or minhum man lam naqsus alayk. There were many we did not tell you about. I feel that the wisdom of many ancient civilizations would have been prophetic, that there would have been prophets amongst them. And you can see sometimes the gems of that trickling down. When you hear these wise kind of stories, or wise parables and allegories, and it sparkles with like prophetic guidance. Allahu a'lam. But that's how it sounds. Right, so right. Okay, so a loop like Sufi's loop. That's referring to me talking about the loop. Mufti, have you read Al-Hikam by Ibn Ata'illah? I have. In the future, I'll read some from that as well. Why not? Why not? In fact, I did have, I don't know if it's here, I have that Ibn Arabi's book. There was something. Is this? No, that's not it. I thought that might have been it, but no, it wasn't. I think I've left it downstairs. I did have a book. It was really interesting, actually. I thought, I'll read a little extract from it, where he speaks about he was doing tawaf by the Kaaba, and then he speaks about Adam alayhi salam and many Adams, and whoa, it's quite intriguing. But yeah, actually, I did have a poem somewhere. I saw this and I did print it off thinking, you know what, I'll read this. What I'll do is I'll share the link, and whilst I do that, I'll read this poem. Okay, I've shared that. There was also was that another super sticker chat by Azarati? Shukran. Much love. Dearly appreciated. Right, so in Hindu, gods can accept each other. Your God can't tolerate others. The reason said in the Quran is that they will fight each other's like hen. In fact, male hen. I mean, there's no such reference in the Quran about they will fight each other. Like, I don't know what that reference is to. And I disagree that I agree that Hinduism, it wasn't called Hinduism. In essence, it's called Sanatan Dharma. It was a very tolerant in essence. I feel it had great tolerance to it until the British kind of got there. It wasn't really, I think some Hindus did become quite discriminatory against other faiths, but that may have been in reaction to the the Mughals and stuff. But they, in essence, I do accept that they have been quite tolerating within their faith structures. But then you see, that's from the aspect of, well, this person worships this god and he doesn't attack that person worshipping Shiva, who doesn't attack that person worshipping Vishnu, or that person. People can have their favorite gods, and that's true. But then you look at things like, you see, and what's interesting is they have that kind of tolerance at a theosophical level. They do have that. And in essence, they do actually just they ought to believe in just one God. And they say these are just manifestations. And then people obviously got carried away. But what's also interesting is they don't have a clear black and white. So they don't have a clear devil and a, good guy, bad guy. They have a very, just a gray area. So even the stories like the Mahabharata will show that there is a conflict of duty, and you just do what you do. You just do you. You don't have to. There's no necessary right or wrong. And I think in some ways that is profound. But then you see, you look at where theosophy melts into the human world, how we live and interact. And it is incredibly discriminatory. You have the caste system, and you have people that are to live an eternity in this caste, and they cannot outgrow this caste. And if a person walks in, he can never, he can't walk into the kitchen because he's in a chut. And, this person is a low caste, they are untouchable. And then they've got, this person's a Dalit, and they can't do this. And the Brahmin are the only one who could read and write first. They were the only ones allowed to read and write. And the superstitions that they've riddled the faith with, and things like the way a person is cursed, and to remove a curse, you have to marry a tree or marry a dog or marry something. And then the ultimate, they take the theosophy and they speak of an eschatology, the after this world, and they remove it from that sense of, this kind of harmony into this samsara of where you will have now this rebirth of karma with huge tragic fear factors, that you're going to be born again as a beetle or a cockroach or a dog, or you're going to be born as something tragic and suffer for an eternity. I don't see the compassion trickling down in any way. I do accept that, it is true at a theosophic level in its foundation, it was not binary. There were no binaries, and that is definitely a plus point. And I think it's something everybody can learn from. But then, as soon as it melts into human interaction, it becomes a burden to bear. This Sanatan Dharma is a burden now, because of the caste system and the tyranny and the whole rituals are nothing but superstition on steroids. Now you switch it to Islam, and the root thing is just one God as well, which in essence in Hinduism was one God as well. It was Brahman, or Paramatma, or Ishvar in essence. And it's just one God as well in Islam. And really, Islam doesn't go the way later Christianity goes the full way of empowering the devil to becoming the bad guy and God the good guy. And I accept some Muslims may kind of lean that way, but generally the Quran doesn't go that way. And So people could say, but there is some binary, maybe some people read into Islam a binary between the devil and God. But really, Allah does not portray like that in the Quran. Allah portrays this challenge of the ego, of the identity ego. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ. That we have created inside. We know his nafs, his ego, the identity, what it is whispering to him. You see? Because if you say it's the devil, then tell me when the story that is given in the Quran, the allegory, whether it's metaphorical or literal, however you want to take it, but the story of the shaitan refusing to bow down to Adam, the question is, well, who was the shaitan's shaitan then? If there's an ultimate binary, but the essence was about the nafs. You see, so there isn't this good guy, bad guy, God is the good guy, devil is the bad guy, like some Christians do believe, but there is this ultimate being, what some people may call the ground of being, but this being which is the ultimate, which is Allah. And yes, I accept that in some ways people see Islam can have some binary teachings, because it's part of the Abrahamic faiths, it can have that. But as soon as, you see, when Islam then comes into, it connects with human interaction, interacts with the real world, you have fiqh and sharia, and we have differences, and they're taught to respect the differences. They're taught to, whether people do it or not is up to them, but they are taught. They are fundamentally taught that there is ikhtilaf, that this ikhtilaf is a rahmah, that you have different ways of looking at things. You have, some person may say that is forbidden, a different person may interpret it differently. And generally, for the most part, as a concept, it is accepted that there is ikhtilaf within this ummah, and that this ikhtilaf should not be seen as a bad thing. So in the human world, in the interaction world, there is great diversity. It's not binary, it's not black and white. And it's only, unfortunately, some people who, like the kind of evangelic people who believe in a strong binary in halal, haram, most people, they accept there's a difference of opinion, and this is your personal belief. So I disagree on every account that Islam is that it is somehow intolerant, that it is somehow kind of restricted to a black and white world. It isn't. It is incredibly colorful. So, and I feel it does stand the test of time. It has stood the test of time. So I disagree passionately with your comment, but about how Hinduism could trump Islam. I don't, but I'm not saying Hinduism doesn't, or any faith or any belief system doesn't have good things in it. It does. All good faith systems around the world will have some gems that they can contribute to mankind. And I personally believe that most faith systems, maybe not all, but most or many, let's say many, had would have been, what Islam would call prophets. I mean, they may use other words, but yeah, I hope that helps. Right. So, right. Okay. So, right. Did I share I can't remember whether okay, I'll share the link. There you go, people. I think I've shared it now. Okay, I can't tell. Oh, there it is. I can see it now. Whilst that's shared, if you want to join, you can click that, tune in. Right, I want to say a few words on what is the distinction between superstition and religion? And this doesn't have to be a long reply, but it's an incredibly important one. I don't know. I mean, you can think in your own mind that how would I distinguish? Would I say I believe it's just God in the equation changing it all? Not at all. Because somebody could say, I believe in a particular God that tells me to, stand on one foot every Wednesday and then do something, and it's not the concept of a God that makes the difference. What distinguishes religion, or if you want, some people have called it true religion, but just religion, real religion in that sense, from superstition, is that religion in essence is based on a pursuit of intellectual or reason based, and that's what I mean by intellectual and meditative inquiry. What they would say in Arabic, tadabbur, okay, and tafakkur. Or as the Muslim theologians use in their books, nazar. They say nazar, which doesn't exactly mean sight, it means reason or reflection. So this kind of reflective, meditative inquiry is what fundamentally demarcates, separates religion from superstition. Superstition, for the most part, are irrational beliefs that play on mostly play on people's hopes and fears. So that's the distinction. Now, some people may say there's an overlap in certain things, depends on the perspective, but that's what really demarcates and delineates, separates these two. So in Islam, you have you have many traditions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for a significant period, going through this reflective, meditative solitude, where he would go to Ghar Hira, or he would go to cave Hira, and he would be in a reflective, meditative state of personal reflection and inquiry, and you see that, and this is why the Quran really does say on so many occasions, even though whether people do it or don't, but it says, "Afala yatadabbarun," do they not then get into this reflective, pondering state? Whereas superstitions would never ask you, that's not their road at all. They would never say, oh, ponder over these things, or reflect, or get into a meditative kind of a mindfulness inquiry, or they would never do that. They would just play off hopes and fears. And I think that's an incredibly important distinction to know, because if you take faith seriously, this is my view, it should not be based on fears, hopes, and fears. I think if you take it seriously, I mean, if you want to, it's your choice, it's your life, it's your faith, it's absolutely fine. But I feel, and this is really the language of the Quran, that it doesn't say to people, just do it out of this. Some people could use certain verses to mean that, but most of the verses speak about a pondering, speak about reflection, a mindfulness. Most verses speak about that. Whereas superstition, so if this is something we've got to ask ourselves, like, where are we? But I thought it's important to share that. Cool. All right. So all right. Let me, while some people are tuning in and the rest of you are clicking like and share, I'm going to read this poem. It's been a while. I came across a different John Elia poem. He does have something about him, may his soul rest in peace. Amen. What I'll do is I'll read it first, and then I'll share some, I don't know if there's some words, or okay, I suppose I'll explain the words as I go along. Kisi se ehdo peyman, right? Right, so किसी से अहदो पैमान करना रहियो. Okay, speaking about ahd, about making vows. तो तो उस बस्ती में रहियो पर ना रहियो. Allah. And you see, this is the thing about poetry. It makes you question. What is he even saying? Kisi se ehdo peiman karna rahiyo. That don't make these oaths with people. Tu us basti mein rahiyo, par na rahiyo. Live in that settlement, but don't live in that settlement. सफर करना है आखिर दो पलक बीच, सफर लंबा है ऐसे बिस्तर, सफर लंबा है बसे बिस्तर ना रहियो. So he says, really, we have to set off in between just two blinkings of an eye. Really, that's all life is when you think about it. The flashback at the end. So he says, don't just stay chilling, base bistar na rahiyo. हर एक हालत के बेरी हैं ये लम्हे. Berry here means like berries. It actually means berries and like fruits. He's trying to say हर एक हालत के बेरी हैं ये लम्हे. So every situation, these moments we have are its fruits. The ever persisting now. हर एक हालत के बेरी हैं ये लम्हे, किसी गम के भरोसे पर न रहियो. Oh, I love that. Oh my God. You see, what he's saying, I mean, there's many ways to understand it, but one way is that, you see, it's kind of like a punchline, because kisi gham ke bharose par na rahiyo. That don't be kind of just, I don't know, beholden or hopeful or in anticipation of some tragedy or gham or sorrow. And that's a kind of like a punchline, because you'd expect it to be some kind of joyous event. But like I said, in Urdu poetry, they celebrate melancholy and sorrow. So he's saying that हर एक हालत के बेरी हैं ये लम्हे, किसी गम के भरोसे पर न रहियो, सहूलत से गुजर जाओ मेरी जान, कहीं जीने की खातिर मर न रहियो. Oh my God, wallahi, huh? Sahulat se guzar jao meri jaan. He says, why don't you just traverse, just get through it with ease, my dear. Kahin jeene ki khatir mar na rahiyo. Says, let it not be that out of such a passion to live you die. हमारा उम्र भर का साथ ठहरा, सो मेरे साथ तू दिन भर न रहियो. That's once again. See, that just has to be Joe Nalia, isn't it? That kind of hashtag dil jale, huh? The people that are just like always, just so, they're just broken always. Where he says, look, hamara umar bhar ka saath tehra, that we've got a lifelong companionship. So mere saath tu din bhar na rahiyo. So don't stay with me every day. He's like, get your own life, yaar. He's like, don't worry, we got a lifelong thing here. He says, बहुत दुश्वार हो जाएगा जीना, यहाँ तू जात के अंदर ना रहियो. Wow, that, life, it will become too difficult to live. Don't be too trapped within this self. Allah. Nazar par bar ho ja, and bar here means weight. What was that poem about Mir, where he says, सब पे जो बार गिरानी था, उसको ये नातवा उठा लाया. इंसान. So he says, नजर पर बार हो जाते हैं मंजर, जहां रहियो वहां अक्सर ना रहियो. He says, नजर पर बार हो जाते हैं मंजर. The scenery, after a while it becomes burdensome on the self, on vision, on sight. See, scenery is so beautiful when you think about it. But he says the same thing, after a while it becomes burdensome. Jahan rahiyo, wahan aksar na rahiyo. Wherever you decide to live, make it a habit that that's often not where you live. Those were the epic words of Hazrat Don Ilya. Right, I think I missed a super chat. I've shared the, oh, that was just a super sticker. You're doing it. Go Globe, much love. You're doing it. You're doing it. Right, so, all right, I've shared the link. I think some people did try to jump on, and oh, I think some are back. Let me check. All right, I'll bring on some. Where's, yeah, I gotta go get ready to take off. Those of you that are into, I'm a bit of an audiophile. You know, I have to do my reviews as well, right? Because people, it is here. Oh, you can't see it properly, but look at that. All right, the Z Fold 3. I'm going to do a clip at some point, maybe just about a review on this, but all right. Wow, 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 wow. I gotta say, it's been a while since I've been kind of proud of Samsung, but they have done it here, you know. Honestly, I have to say, the size and weight of this, and you know, when it folds close, it's not, so I haven't really put I did get a case, but I don't know, the cases don't give you the feel. It feels incredible. I'm sure that's something that could be taken out of context, but this is, I'm telling you, I think Samsung have done all of us Samsungites, whatever, they've done us proud here with the, because I love the size at this level, because it's slightly different to the, see, that was the one before you've got. So this is slightly slimmer, and but because of the fold, it's, you know, it kind of comes more into the hand, and it has a weight to it, not too heavy, but that kind of valuable weight, you know, when you know it's gold. You know, when you deal with gold for so long. Right, so, but I'm proud, I have to say. I like it. Right, let's go into, I have to say, this ego identity has a weakness for gadgets. So I was going to say, those of you audiophile fans, the B&O, Bang & Olufsen H9 are epic. I mean, they are incredibly unique for sound. So, all right, some of you just tuning in, let me just put this on. All right, so who have we got? Muhammad Hassan, you're doing it. Oh, assalamu alaikum, Muhammad Hassan.
Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Is it pretty late out there in England right now?
Oh, what is time?
That's the kind of response I expected from you, actually.
Allah.
Actually question
And I
the
would,
idea of time.
and I wouldn't disappoint. It's not my style. Style nahi hai yaar.
Yeah, man.
Where are you joining us from, Muhammad Hassan?
So I'm actually joining you guys from the United States, Milwaukee. It's
Milwaukee.
Do you know where that is?
I've heard of it.
It's like 70 miles away from Chicago, so it's not that far.
Okay.
So it's like the biggest city that you could probably have a reference to. But yeah, I mean, I've been a fan for like so many years, and it was honestly like a complete accident that I just came upon like a few videos of you, and I was like, who is this guy? I mean, he's saying he's a mufti, but then like look at his hairstyle, look at his clothes and everything else. What's going on? Like, I had to click, right? I mean, that was a very clickbaity.
Yeah.
So I clicked, and I'm like 5 minutes in listening to your videos, and I'm like, huh. You know, that is very, very interesting that you've got this sort of a perspective on things, because a lot of the things you mention you usually don't hear that stuff like in the orthodoxy, right? And some of those things you kind of think about yourself and you're like, you know what, this would be interesting, but then I don't have the background or anything else to you know, have any authenticity behind what I'm saying. So a lot of the things that we come across from you are actually quite eye-opening, and they've changed my perspective on things significantly. And thank you for that. You know,
you're very welcome. You're very welcome. No, I really appreciate that, Hassan. And I think it's you know, it can be for some people a bit of a catch-22, because you see, eye openers come at the cost of a you know, of cognitive dissonance.
Sure.
Often, and they come at the cost of some kind of unsettled feeling, because you see, we have to, because often we have preconceived notions of things, and we come across something and we think, well, okay, that's odd, I didn't expect that to be. And our natural defense systems for survival are such that anything that challenges or is contrary to prior kind of just constructs that we have, whatever they are, whether they're right or wrong. But the self, for self-preservation, will seeks to preserve them, because it's a state of conflict, and it doesn't know, so it just puts up immediate defense systems, and that can be very difficult. So yeah, but I appreciate that it's been of help.
Abu Huraira, right? Your perspective on him in terms of his relationship to the Prophet and the number of hadiths that he's actually brought up, eye-changing for me. I mean, just blew my mind. Your views on Akhenaten, the second coming of Isa alayhi salam, and then Bukhari Gate. You know, I mean, those are some epic things that you've actually mentioned. And one of the other ones that I recently came across, and I knew you had this opinion, and I kind of seen it, and this is something that I actually wanted to talk to you about today, is like the age of Aisha, right? Radiallahu anha. And what gets me is, like, why are we like sort of just hearing this from you, right? I mean, why are people who are getting trained in like the sciences of Islam and like becoming scholars, why are they almost like parroting what they've heard from people more senior than them? And I can understand like there's a motivation for preserving Islam and everything else, but like, why is there a lack of nuance or creativity? And the idea that you can be okay with being wrong and putting it out to the people that, hey, you know, this is what I came up with. Like, why isn't there any testing of ideas done? And why is everything like so absolute? Like, I just wanted your opinion on that, to just kind of, I've never been able to pin that down. Like, I don't understand, why is there this whole notion of you have to be right 100% of the time if you're an alim or a mufti, and there's no like, you know, room for being wrong. So you got to just stick with your guns and never change. Oops, he's lost me.